I'm Ian Ramsey. I'm an operations director with Wood, based in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi.
One of the reasons I'd like to hear your views is that I see you as being someone who really understands the four cornerstones of what we try to achieve with the Active for Leadership programme. And these are the edge cornerstones: energy, delivery, grit, and engagement. Watching you in action over the years, there's no doubt to me that you live these through the way you conduct yourself. So that's how I would position you, apart from being one of the companies and my own cool friends, which is great in its own right too.
It's not often I get referred to as that.
I'll take it. Perhaps not, but I think you've earned the title. And I wondered if you feel free to range wide across all four of those topics if you wish.
I think, I don't, you and I have known each other for over 20 years, and I don't come from an academic background. There are a few things that have seen me well through my career so far, and there's hard work, there's building relationships, and these things are really useful. But when it comes to the challenges you get in your working life, I think you have to see those through with a different approach. You can't rely upon necessarily any academic approach. You need to make sure that you are. I guess that's when I come back to resilience and being relentless, Ian. The situations have often put me into quite a compromised position. I think some of the things that you've helped me with over the years, you don't realize you're stepping into that situation, and that's when you need to rely upon your leadership style and your values in order to get yourself through the challenge and out the other side. And coaching and leadership frameworks are great to rely upon during those moments of challenge.
What you're talking about there, I think, was maybe encapsulated in the word values. You are a man that knows his own personal values, and I think it's important for people who are in a program like ours to work out for themselves what their values are, because you said it yourself, sometimes in the workplace or in life in general, these things can be compromised. You can find yourself in a compromised position. And that's when you fall on your values to put up the hand and say, no, I'm not going down that road. I'm going to stand my ground here, despite the fact it's tough, and I'm going to see it through, because that's not something that I would be prepared to do, because it would compromise values. And I've seen very clearly with you along the way that you get that, and you epitomise it through the way you conduct yourself. Advice on that to young folks on the up is something that I think is always good to hear from people who have had to see it and be through it themselves. And you're definitely part of that.
I think humanity comes into that, is treating people as you would like to be treated yourself. Of course, that's okay as long as you're not looking to be treated really, or comfortable being treated unfairly. But I think when you are being treated in a way that doesn't sit well with your own approach and your own values, and that's when your integrity gets called into question. And I think that's a real moment where you're tested. And for me, it's always in my gut where I know that there's something not quite right. I can sense it and feel it. I think it's quite a tactile situation. And it then kind of spans into a bit of competency. It's if you know that you know the answer to something, you should drive through and solve it. But where you don't know the answer, the quicker you seek support and help in those situations, the better. So it's almost been really crisp with the fact that when you don't know, it's okay not to know, but you should get to that point quite quickly. When you start to go down a path of trying to solve something that you're maybe not competent to do so, you can become in breach of your own values also. Your integrity can be questioned then.
Yeah. Wise advice. And I think with the pressures of work being ever more relentless, to use the word that you used earlier on, I think it's especially important for people to be aware of those values, those standards. And that's all about knowing yourself. We start our program with quite a lot of analysis of self. Get to know yourself and how you lead yourself before you come along to this topic of how am I going to lead other people. And I see in you someone who really understands how to lead himself. We encourage anyone in our program to do the same. work out how you lead yourself first, and then get into the depths of how you will tackle the equally important challenge, maybe more so, of leading other people.
I think in that sort of space, when it's getting to know yourself, the best leaders for me, and something that I'm very conscious of, is being comfortable to show humility. I think that's really, really important for your team to feel safe. We spoke a second ago about knowing when you don't know something and when it's okay to say that. In an audience, that's powerful if you can show humility and say, well, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm sure I've got a team or some support people who can find out that answer.
Yeah.
And I think when you show humility, you give others the permission to behave in the same way, which is powerful.
Thank you very much. Another theme that we were going to look at, and just briefly, is over the last couple of years, you've exposed people who work for you in your organisation to the Active 4 Leadership Programme, or at least in a former organisation.
Yes.
You brought our programme into that organisation and encouraged it to take it on and see what it could do with people who were in management positions already and on the way up into greater things with the employer. Why? Why would you recommend Active 4? What did you see in the company and in what we do that you thought was worth recommending?
I think in the first instance, I'd been through many of the topics and techniques that you've, I guess, used to your own business to build up the Active 4 formal program. I recall one of our very first engagements when I was on a Future Leaders program with you in 2004. We had the honking geese analogy of people who follow. So I guess what brought me to it was I knew you came with a program that was full of credible research, empirical evidence. It wasn't just a course. It was going to be something that people came out the other side with a real understanding of self, some real tools and techniques. And above all, those who most needed it was a qualified certificate in hand, which I think a lot of these experiences don't come with. So that's what gave me the confidence to bring you into the business and to take those 10 people through that program. I'm still in touch with many of those people, and the common conversation that we have is about their experience they had, because it can be quite a fundamental journey for 10 people who might know each other through a business but suddenly embark on the same journey together. Became a very powerful learning environment for them to be in. They had to trust each other. And I know they've all taken different things away on their leadership journey. So it was very powerful and really worthwhile.
No, that's good to know. Thank you very much. And perhaps in that anecdote, the thing that people might remember most is honking. Yeah. Geese do honk. They fly over this house where I'm in just now regularly at this time of year, and they honk because they know how to lead each other and they call out to each other. They have an ongoing conversation with their colleagues. That's exactly what you should do at work, and you get that point. Thank you very much.
I think when you get a snippet of a leadership model or a way of behaving or being, and it sticks with you from 20 years ago, no matter what the analogy is, that's powerful. And that's not just in the content, but I think that's in how it's delivered through the Active 4 style, the engagement that comes, and the coaches that are within the business. It's not just the content. I think it's also about how it's delivered, which is crucial to make sure it sticks.
We're very careful with that, and it's good that you recognise that, because the coaches in our business are very, very good at working relationships with the delegates who are their coachees, and encouraging, more to the point, the delegates to work the relationships authentically with their peers, colleagues, direct reports, and so on, because so much successful leadership revolves around getting to know the people who you're there to work with, and to do it really well with the word that you built into this process at its heart, humility. And humility built into relationships, driven by a sense of who you are, driven by a sense of where we feel we can go together as a group of people. They're very rich in what we do, and it's interesting to hear you recognise that. So thank you very much.
If there were two things that I would encourage any leader to be. And no leader is the finished article, but it's just two things that stick with me as being very important. And it's humility, as we spoke about earlier, but also authenticity. And I think the minute that you say one thing and behave in a different way, or vice versa, there's a crack in your approach. And I think that's authenticity really backs up everything. If you don't deliver a program with authenticity, if you don't behave with authenticity, that these things, if you look at the value set, they're fundamentally not repairable, irreparable, if that makes sense, when you start to breach authenticity. So I think that's a really key part.
I would agree, and it's interesting that these are two big takeaways that you've had. And if you look at it a slightly different way from an authenticity point of view, authenticity is the glue between the pieces of the jigsaw, the puzzle. That's what binds it together. The minute that the authenticity begins to go, then you get these cracks. So work hard on remaining yourself authentically, and that will serve you very well, whoever you are, in life as well as in leadership. So thanks for the observation. That's much appreciated. Thank you for your time.